just 3 on a committee. If you bump into your committee member, you can't talk about it. So you have to turn it off.
I'm all set.
Okay. And even if you turn it off, I wonder.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm not sure either.
It's the turn phones. I was at a party the other day, and I ran into a lady that is a pediatrician at our doctor's office. I'm going to call this meeting to order, which is a special session of the Leelanau County Parks and Rec Commission. I'm going to skip the pledge because we already just did that. Roll call.
Mr. Behrens?
Yes.
Mr. Christensen?
Present.
Mr. Frericks?
Yes.
Ms. Lautner absent excused. Mr. Noonan?
Here.
Mr. Popa?
Here.
Mr. Trevis absent excused. Mr. Walter?
Here.
Mr. Wessel?
Here.
And Mr. Yeomans. 8-2.
These are all recorded.
Okay, public comment, I see none.
So you're on film all the time?
We can't change the agenda, correct? Because this is a special session, so we'll move right into it. The first item is review, approval, and recommendation to the Board of Commissioners of the draft 2020 through 2024 Community Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Greenways plans. And maybe to start out, possibly Ty, would you give us an update of what the board had to say?
We had this presented to the Board of Commissioners last week, and it was, and Dave was here, and it was our hope that we'd get that approved and move forward with working on the grant. Because there are too many gaps in it, because it was a draft and not a final. They were not willing, and probably justifiably so, to approve that. We wanted to approve it in concept, and then we could continue to work on it. But it's back on the agenda for next Tuesday, and it must be a completed plan by next Tuesday, so that the board will review that and approve it so we can move forward. And I think we're close, but they were unhappy with some of the gaps and some of the, there were some errors and some typos, and some of the corrections were made, but some of them had not been made yet. So I asked Laurel to schedule this meeting today to make sure that we all got together and really tied the ribbon around it for next week.
The criticality of this, the timing on this is that this has to be filed by February 1st in order to then, in March, before April 1st,
Apply for Veronica.
apply for another MD, Natural Resources Trust Fund grant. But this has to be to the state by February 1st.
Okay.
Approved by everybody.
Well,
On our end.
on our end. This year they,
I don't mean us, I mean them.
Yeah,
Approved by
that's
them
correct.
has to be
By the-
before it can go to the
County
state.
board.
Right.
Exactly. This commission and the county board, yes.
Mr. Chairman, between 1 and 2, 1 is the plan and number 2 is just the resolution words?
Correct.
Okay. So what do we got to do on this plan? I've read that plan a couple times,
John did a heck of a job.
hard copies, and I got a phone call when I was in the UP and went over all my comments. You were out west or something, can't remember. You in California?
Yep.
And I got my comments in, but there was more comments after mine. Laurel had a nice pile of comments.
And there's some here from Will, the chairman of the county board.
Okay, so what do we got to do? Go over everybody's comments or just give them, or what?
Those have all been forwarded to you, haven't they, Klaus?
We received that after Christmas, yeah.
Okay.
And those have all been made,
I believe there are some to address regarding some of the questions about Veronica Valley's plan, which I wasn't at liberty to address because it's not our role in the plan here.
Right.
That plan was developed last year.
Right.
And if there's questions that those may need to be answered for Mr. Bunnick based on the questions in that memo. There was we only received formally your comments, John. Some Laurel was working back and forth with us on little editorials, and then this was the last one. So if there are others, I do not have them.
Well, you did receive the document I uploaded to the FTP site on Monday, right?
And I don't know what that has more edits in it.
Yes.
Yeah, I have not looked at that
That's
yet.
this one?
He has a hard copy.
And those are additional to Mr. Bunnick's?
Yes.
Okay. So those are to be made before next week's 21st, I think.
And there are indications in purple pen on the, Steve?
It's right here.
No, the copy Steve has.
Okay.
There's indications, Mr. Ferricks had called me and noted a few things when he reviewed the plan. And I indicated those on purple on my copy so that they were combined.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chair, I want to make comment, because I sent Klaus a short thank you the other day, because I think they did a remarkable job.
Absolutely.
Of putting this together. I think the gaps were, some of us didn't do the final stuff we should have done. And I hope you hear that message.
We're all the same
Yeah.
team here, and we're just trying to get it ready.
So
So
today
yeah, I
we're-
appreciate that.
So today, we're going to go, I hope, page by page on every, so that we're done. Do we have hard copies for everybody?
Some people have them.
I got so many hard
I was
copies.
hoping it was gonna be as good as Elmwood's.
Yeah, hopefully it's close. I mean, Elmwood's is very complicated.
Do you have a hard copy of all the changes
It's
you've
about 6
incorporated?
minutes to print out one set.
Yeah, I did not bring additional hard copies. Sorry, John?
I have two.
You do?
I do not have one, you don't have one.
Do you have a hard copy after you put everybody's comments
Survey,
in, primarily Laurel's?
I got
It
one.
had been emailed out to everyone.
Yeah, I've read it on the internet and everything, but I didn't bring a hard
my
copy.
phone,
just
you wanna borrow my
print
phone?
one out.
Well,
How
yeah,
many do you
'cause
have, John? How many do you have?
Yeah, let me see if I can get.
He doesn't have
this
one.
last one is like,
Why don't we put it up on the screen?
That's fine.
this is from
Let
October.
me email
I
that
didn't-
to you, and then we can have Chet get you set up with your iPad maybe, because yeah.
What's the latest printout you got?
This one Laurel gave me yesterday,
Oh, so you got a hot one.
and then this one was last week.
It's chilly. That one is sort of hot. So that's the freshest.
Yeah, this is the one with Laurel's marks in it. I got through that yesterday and today, and to see what she was doing. And it looked pretty thorough to me, what she did, and I didn't pick up but a few more from what she did.
I mean, obviously, I don't think we need to go through edits. We need to go through substance more than edits if they're on Laurel's copy, because those are maybe comments or hyphens or other things like that. But, I mean, I don't think we all need to go through each one of those, but we should go through any substantive ones, and the ones on Mr. Bennick's
Oh, I got
commentary were the ones that I was concerned about most. When I saw those, I do not know Mr. Ferrick. I don't know your comments. I have not been able to go through them
You
yet.
mean the Laurel?
So that would be good, yes, it would be good for you to point out the things
I
you
will,
found, if
okay,
anything,
sure.
that were
As long as I can get on here.
substantive
Okay.
question.
I think I can.
So you still want to go through these page at a time?
The
He said
only-
he's looking for substance.
The only thing I want to make sure is when it comes, it's got to be mailed to commissioners on Thursday of this week. That's day after, that's tomorrow. So it's got to be done.
It's just, yeah, I mean, we can't get edits, yeah, but that's fine. I'll do it tonight then, because we just don't have the time to turn it around that fast, but.
It's gotta be.
Well, it could, we can put in the packet tomorrow that it'll be under separate cover
Okay,
on Monday.
okay, yeah,
But the commissioner's got to have a final copy.
sure.
Because if you were there, Dave, they're not going to approve something that isn't done. I wanted them to approve it in concept,
Mhm.
but they're uncomfortable with that
And that's the commissioners' meeting, not the executive meeting?
at the executive meeting.
Executive meeting's Tuesday?
Well, I think it'd be beneficial, you know, it's real easy to thumb through the pages, and that'll give Klaus a really good idea where he's heading with his editing, and
I think the edits, if they're editorial edits, are very quick. What I'm worried about is that there are new, we don't understand why there are trails over here in Veronica Valley kind of questions, because I can't respond to that in the rec plan. That's a committee kind of question to answer, and that's where I was concerned about some of the questions Mr. Bunnick had, because they were relative to work you have done last year and previously. And all we did is we put the plans that were produced into the report. We didn't,
You didn't adjust any of
we
that.
didn't make any, because I didn't even have those until after Christmas. So we wouldn't make those changes now. And if you want me to make some response to that he's expecting to see, I need to know that. That's what I'm worried about.
I think Will's comfortable with the response we gave him, which
Okay.
was, this was written for as much as we could to qualify for grants, and that you were the expert, and so some
Right.
of this was in there to get us points, and I think he was comfortable with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do think, let me see the comments again to refresh my memory, but I think he had, one of his references really was incorrect.
Correct, there was one that was not accurate, but.
So are you gonna go through and take the lead and go through page at a time then, or?
We will, of course, go through, if they're self-explanatory, the edits will be made and changed. But if they're substantive that this committee needs to address, and this is the only component that I know of that has any of that, this, from Mr. Bunnick, that's why I wanted to make sure we respond to that.
There is a one of Will's concerns is, there is a statement in here that a parking lot will be moved.
And I don't know where that,
I don't
it's
know
out
where
of
that-
context, so I'm not sure where that came from, but, I brought the plan,
Page
if we
38.
wanted to look at it, and we'll segue into the grant in a moment. I think, we may be confused with where the temporary parking was shown to exist from different events that occur here, that we showed as, parking, overflow parking. So
Well, I
I don't
did-
know if that's what he's referencing, or if he's referencing maybe
Initial
this.
discussion of that.
Or, okay.
On the other hand, it does say in the 5-year plan here in front of us on page 38, 2 existing parking areas will remain, 1 moved. But so the net increase in parking area will be
Okay,
kept
so
to a
he's
minimum.
specifically wondering about the wording there, not the plan.
That's correct.
And so the wording.
But I didn't even know that had gotten into this plan. I didn't,
Hypothetical,
it had always been talked about with the grant app as a possibility.
So we'll just take it out,
Yeah, I would say.
the wording there. It just was hard for me to reference where he found it, because there wasn't the page reference, or what, was he looking at the plan, was he looking at the document?
I think it just
Does he say the page
38.
there?
Page 38,
Okay, so relative to this plan, maybe we don't change the plan, we just take that wording out, because there really isn't one being moved. There was one being proposed as an overflow over on that side. I think we had talked about this area. It's not really being moved, it's proposed potential improve overflow. And I think this one as well, I don't know why this isn't labeled.
Well, there had been, in initial discussions here, Klaus, we talked about the possibility of moving.
Okay.
And that's what confused me. I didn't find his reference until I read it today. It is on page 38
I didn't put that
in
in.
here.
that rectangle.
Sometimes if you put too much shit in there, it just causes errors. We should say we have lots of land and lots of water.
Lots of,
Lots of.
is that one word?
So we'll just strike that line out and.
Polish word for minute.
Whenever I put it in my typing and I put lots of.
Right in there.
You'll know, when we hit that page, you'll know.
Word spelling thing barks at me.
Is there anything
Lots of-
else in his comments that we can answer relative to Veronica Valley? I thought there were a couple of things.
The one was the, page 41, we can get, when we get to it, it says, what does this sentence mean? With the completion of the purchase, a management plan has now been developed and implemented. What was purchased and who has this plan?
The land was purchased.
Like 41.
Okay, page 41?
We were referencing the purchase of the Veronica Valley property through the DNR. And probably the NOMR management plan, it was a grant plan where there had to be some steps taken when the land was purchased. Steve would probably be able to, I don't
Yeah,
have the
it's-
grant agreement, but again, we can reword that. It's,
When the land was purchased.
Well, his wording is
Yeah,
off
wow.
compared to what is in here. It says with the acquisition of the property, and he says with the completion of the purchase. That's not, it's two totally different things. Not totally different, but two different wordings. A management plan has now been developed and implemented, which is the Veronica Valley plan.
We can change it.
Instead of saying has now been,
right.
cross that out and put was.
Yeah, and I was.
A management plan was developed.
I think that was referencing some of the steps that had to be taken when the property was purchased initially. And
That had
it's
to be-
really complicated because that means you have to have the semantics of that grant agreement in there, which, like John's saying, maybe we just simplify it and just say, it doesn't need to be in there at all. I mean, we were trying to provide that, the opportunity that the county has worked up a plan, a master plan, it shouldn't be a management plan, that has been utilized for the grant purposes, right? And I think we just eliminate the whole statement.
Well, the DNR helped us buy it to begin with,
Correct.
so the DNR wants to see us with a plan to move
Correct.
forward with it.
That's where we're headed towards there. It just needs to be better wording. And if you don't have the background, maybe knowing the separation between the purchase and what was required then, and we're getting technical on it, you don't need to. I think the statement is, you purchased the land by the DNR, and now you have a master plan that guides the future development of that purchased property.
That sounds better than.
So we'll look at that.
So on 41,
simple.
redo the sentence.
Reword it, yeah.
Well, I think, we've got enough copies, we can, while Laurel's, or do we have to wait? for-
I just want to make sure we go through Will's comments.
Those are the main,
perfect.
the editorial ones, one says it's page 45 is a repeat of page 43.
And that's not, that one was an error. The problem is there's two plans in there. They both have the same left side of the page, and that sheet is split because we did a double page layout. So it looks the same, but it's actually two different plans. If you look at page 45. So we
Compared to
would,
what page?
43.
so
They're not the same.
It's
they're
just
not
the same picture.
because they're actually two different plans. It's just that the title, and a lot of the information here is the same, but the title block is different.
That is different.
So that.
This
maybe
goes with
he
this
saw
plan.
they look the same because the one half of the page is relatively close.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's what that plan, this is
Picture
different.
the same.
So I wouldn't recommend changing it unless you want us to change these are just putting in what we produced a year and a half ago.
It's
in the
fine.
document.
Fine. What's the next one?
Page 63 says 4 major points and then states these 5 points are.
Yeah, and I think that was edited and changed, and maybe he had an older copy.
I think so.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just like that's an editorial. Page 69, number B, provide the Park and Rec Commission with oversight responsibilities. This appears to be an employee or park manager.
We answered that really last week for Will, that it wasn't, that this was cut and paste from the previous. Do you remember we all talked about this?
Yeah.
Was it, because I questioned, was that even needed?
Right.
Um,
I do remember.
And that it was not referencing a park manager. He seemed to be, do you recall, Ty, when Will and Tony were going back and forth asking about whether this statement,
He probably thought we wanted to hire a park manager.
Yeah.
he wondered if that's what it meant. I thought he was convinced that no.
But yeah, I think he was okay with that when we got done.
I think he was.
But I mean, if it needs to be reworded to make it less implicit of that, I mean, maybe, what
We had had a
we
discussion.
were intending there, and was this a total repeat of the original plan?
I think, of the original language.
Of the original, of
never
the
come in.
previous plans?
I think so.
Okay.
Because
Well,
we
one
talked
thing
about
that
it in our
may,
committee.
I think what it is technically is that with your maintenance manager at the table on occasion when Scott's here, the committee is, aren't you working up maintenance programs for each park? Your committee is, with Scott's help.
With Scott, yeah.
So that really is, maybe you just drop to provide, and Parks and Recreation Commission is really doing that. And that's all this plan really wants to say. Part of the reason is that the DNR has requirements in the grant programs now to have a maintenance component as part of the grant. So we wanted to make sure it was part of your rec plan too, that's being regularly scrutinized. And you guys are ramping up, even since I've been working with you, that process has been ramping up. So you have a better handle on O&M costs for your capital budget requests, right?
So we want to leave it as is. We got the words maintenance in
As
there.
long as Will is okay with it. you know.
County-wide maintenance person, I mean.
I mean,
that's
God
what
knows
is.
Scott needs more help, we all know that, probably. His boss was here at our public input, one of the few public people that came, and we said, hey, you might need some help, especially if Veronica Valley has more resources developed. So, and Miles Kimberly, you know, is ramping up.
Well, we are
The
trying
county
to,
board has approved a quarter position for Parks and Rec.
Yes.
That's what
And
we
that,
have.
we have had
Chad
difficulty
is
keeping
bringing the
that position
laptop in,
filled.
we were waiting for the file to download because of the size. I
so we're gonna
couldn't
leave B
email.
as it is, because it has this maintenance words that they need. What was his other comment?
That was the last, well, the one about the parking area.
And then, and this, I don't think there's any page reference there to why, he questions why are the trails being moved.
Yeah, that one I wasn't quite sure about.
I was clueless as to what he was asking there.
Well, I'm
Miles?
sure he's probably looking at the
Or Veronica.
additions up to the trail. Would that be? They're not being moved, some of them are, in the plan are being added on to.
Added on.
Yeah, but they're not being moved.
And he, am I correct, there's no page reference to that comment about move?
Just so we could
Where
get
is the
going on
parking
it.
area? Page, he just says page 38. I don't know if that's on page 38 as
I
well.
didn't find it.
It just, there isn't a, it just says one parking area is to be moved. Page 38, where is the parking area to be moved to at Veronica Valley? What is the purpose of shifting the trails at Veronica Valley? We're not shifting them, we're adding on to them.
And I hadn't found any reference in here to shifting it, so I didn't know where he was coming from.
I'm sure he's probably looking at that map, I'm
Okay,
guessing.
that's what it is.
Proposed.
Did you get signed in?
And then, as far as just regular comments go,
Oh, yeah,
I'm
sorry,
saying
yeah,
it-
I do.
there seemed to be very little mention of Kids Fish Day or cross-country meets by local schools for Veronica Valley. And I was surprised by the extensive recreational inventory. Most of the recreational opportunities appeared to me to have nothing to do with this plan.
He was satisfied with our discussion of that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that was.
It's just a quality content to this document, to the whole document, to put that in, and he was satisfied with that.
Okay.
We didn't speak to why there isn't more comment about fishing day, or I'm not sure where you would want that.
We can put some, maybe to address that, we do have some things we intend to put in the addendum, or I'm sorry, in the appendices, which kind of are gravy to the plan, including a couple caveats about the Kids Fishing Day, since it's such a big program.
It is a big program, but yet
You
it's
know.
still an event that's held
Right.
at the park. It's not necessarily part of the park plan.
Right.
We don't have a long-term contract for that or anything. I
Right.
mean, it's a year-to-year deal, which we intend to keep doing, I'm sure.
Right.
But I don't really know if it needs a,
We
The only
weren't-
reason that
exactly,
we need
we're
it
really
is-
focused on that. We do mention it in there because it is part of what happens at the park.
right, and
So
it's,
we
it
felt
is a
like that
huge
was-
event. It's a group, the best event that we have in our parks.
It's a DNR related.
Yeah.
And I thought I did have
Can't
one
do
statement about
cross-country and
cross-country,
every
but that was
event
all I
that you
had.
have everywhere in it.
Right. We don't talk about Old Settlers Picnic in there.
Right, but it's a DNR related event, so, I mean, for a DNR grant.
Yeah.
Let's go back to page 38, that last paragraph. Or did we already answer this? This where it says this parking lot's gonna be removed? In addition to the trails, blah, 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 2 existing parking areas will remain with 1 moved, so that the net increase in parking area
Well,
will
I
be.
think
Well, that's
that
what we're
I
gonna
think that
take
idea-
right out.
I think that idea went away.
So we should just say 2 existing parking areas will remain?
I think we'll just, or eliminate the entire sentence.
The 2 existing will be remain, period.
It's fine.
Okay?
2 existing parking areas will remain. Klaus, you got that?
Page 38, and then cross out, like Steve said, bam. Now, way back in this last sentence, and let me whistle through it. This center envisions use by youth groups, schools, individual visitors. This will be a 4-season park with birding, cross-country ski. Let's put a carrot in there, this is my suggestion. DNR sponsored kids fishing day someplace in that last sentence.
Sure.
I like that word DNR. It was your idea? You are brilliant.
Thank you.
Do they actually sponsor?
I'm Polish.
No, I'm Polish. You're not even Polish.
They're not one of the sponsors of it.
Management plan.
This center is, so someplace individual visitors, tourists, 4-season park with birding,
But should we say?
and then right after birding,
Sponsoring
Kids
if
fishing
they
day.
aren't really sponsoring.
DNR Kids Fishing Day or something.
But it's really.
They do an assist, they don't sponsor.
Right.
DNR assisted kids
So,
fishing day.
Yeah, I'll
There
put,
you go.
Assisted, not
Throws them a bone.
sponsored.
And that gets that word in there, that fishing thing, that takes care of his concern, the parking lot
Okay.
and everything.
That's fine with me.
That's fine with me too.
Should we call him right now?
And then, at the bottom of this, I just to mention it, it says 2 items. The theme seems to be that the public cannot enjoy a park without signage everywhere, which is an unfortunate reality in my mind because of the, not the ADA, but, you know, our insurance and everything. We have to have these signs, shallow water, you know.
Snakes.
Hot, play at your own risk, da-da-da-da-da. We have no choice.
Signage is great. When someone walks up and you go to national parks, I read all their signs and everything.
And also the signs that when you're coming into the park with the park rules, we have to have rules so that we can enforce something.
Yep.
You can't.
Right.
We went through all
I
that.
I understand that
So what was his other comment then?
it appears that the Park and Rec Commission is expecting to increase its budget every year as it has been receiving recently.
Correct.
Well, it's interesting.
Again, not related to the.
Right, these were
plan.
just extra comments I thought.
Well, when Will
Yeah.
sat in the seat you're sitting in and saw
we did
how we
most
were
of
trying
the,
to do
we did
with
most
what
of
we're
the,
doing.
Will Bonnet got it.
He was the major
already.
opponent on this group for increasing what we were getting. So, it's a change of tune.
Well, and as you change seats, you have to change.
Change your tune. But, so anyway, I think,
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Across that sign. Put a sign by the.
Well,
I think the reality of the situation.
Usually, for the system, yeah, well,
The reality is that we have parks and we need
I
to,
think it's reading.
we need to take care of them and make them useful for the public.
Well, part of
It
it
takes a
also.
certain amount of money, and there's money available to do that through a grant.
Yeah.
When we do that, we're upgrading.
And here's your plan.
We're upgrading our park. It's gonna cost a little bit more money to have a more useful park, rather than just state land. You can see what happens to the state land. It's not.
Oh, thanks, we're all done now.
I'm good for something.
Let's start right there with the title, because that was Melinda's issue. Can we just drop the Greenway then?
Yeah, that's a title they required up until a few years ago, and apparently that's changed, and it's not as specific anymore. I just got some correspondence, they kind of contradict themselves, just got some correspondence in that shows the weighted scoring of the grants. And in some way, shape, or form, trails are always going to be important to the DNR. So that's what the Greenway part of that was about, trails. They don't require it anymore, so a lot of plans now are just called Community Recreation Plan or 5-year Recreation Plan, and it's not going to cause any angst to the DNR if you change the title to that.
Wouldn't trails fall into the open space too, though?
Anywhere. So, I mean, just calling it a recreation plan, you don't have to have all that semantic up there anymore. Laurel called the grant coordinator and confirmed that she doesn't need that in the grant title anymore. So.
Can I just say Community Parks and Recreation Plan?
Yep, community parks, it can be Leelanau County, Michigan. Community or 5-year recreation plan, if some people put that in there, just so people understand that it's finite and you have to redo it, whatever. So, but whatever you want.
Is it, but we run the risk of a reader for a grant. Looking for that or not?
Minor. I wouldn't force it into your title just for that purpose. I get what you're saying, but yeah. I mean, they're always ramping up for trails, putting.
My one and only comment, is this a 5-year plan?
Should we, 24?
2020 to 2024?
Just gonna say, you brought it up last
We
week.
can, and we
If I just
have.
figure it out and look at it next year, I'm gonna say, well, this is outdated.
That was
Yeah.
That's what happened to us on the last.
Big issue with the whole put 2024 on there. Yeah, and we've done that before, with a lot of numbers, but that's fine.
So it's Community Parks, Recreation.
In the rest of the title, we do have 2024 on the next page, for example, so, but I'll put it on the cover too.
Community Parks.
What's
and
wrong with it the way it is?
Recreation Plan.
The Greenway.
Melinda objected to Greenway.
Well, yes, but if you look at all our maps, we got the national park in there, we got South Fox Island, we got trails, we got snowmobile stuff. There's a lot of stuff in there other than just parks and recreation. It's identifying all kinds of open space, the land there by your property.
But it's only
Well,
green for
I think
3
it was
months.
it's terminology.
The rest of the time it's white.
Yeah,
There are
now,
connotations.
All right, let's
with
move on.
Greenway.
Yep,
Well, you're
Melinda
gonna
didn't
have
like
to
it because
play
of
with
no
the track
reference.
pad.
I rest my case.
So that'll get changed.
So, I'm hearing you want it to be called Community Recreation Plan 2024,
Perfect.
or do you want it to be 5-year Community Recreation Plan?
no, the first is good.
Yeah, I think 2024, then keep 5 out of it.
2020 to 2024.
Well, I don't like the community recreation plan. I like community parks and recreation plan.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's.
For Leelanau County, Michigan.
That gets it better. So Casey, did we do them?
Got it.
So Will is taken care of.
Yeah, Will, that's-
And Melinda's taken care of with the Greenway. So.
No other commissioners had anything to say?
You had comments, right?
Does the red mean that it's not done yet? Because I've never saw an Appendix A or an Appendix B yet.
Yeah, the pink is that because we have to get the final documents in there from the meetings. There's affidavits of publication and other
So you
things.
need
Laurel
those?
sent me some of them, and we'll put all that in the final document. We didn't think it was necessary for the board to see those necessarily. They're required documents from the process.
I think the opinion was to have it as complete as possible. So if you have that information, certainly add it.
Have it in
Okay,
there.
Yeah.
and we got that from you, so we'll do that. We've got some of it, and we'll, do you think the paper's gonna send you, typically they send you a certified, stamped, or sealed?
Well, I mentioned in an earlier email that affidavits of identity are available from the county clerk at this time.
Oh, I have to ask from her to get them?
Yes,
Oh.
she keeps those.
Okay,
It's part of her statutory duty.
okay.
You don't need them to go in front of the board with all this stuff, do you?
If it's incorporated in your plan,
It has to
and
be.
Ty said we should have this as complete as possible prior to going to the board. It's simply a matter of adding a PDF page to this.
Yes.
It needs to be complete.
Right.
And these were held that way for a long time because we obviously didn't have them. Now we do. We can put them in the plan. Usually it's not because of the time frame for this grant or plan adoption. We were very concerned about time frames and didn't realize the county board was adding.
Well, so I think
So,
if we do all of the text by
Yep.
Tuesday, and then it comes to the commission meeting the following Tuesday for any final addendums, I think that would probably work.
Okay.
Because the Board of Commissioners take final action a week from Tuesday.
okay, so you need.
But they're going to tentatively approve the plan, wouldn't you
We're
think,
going
Casey?
to recommend it for approval.
So if the time frame is too short,
Yeah, so if we can have.
whatever's missing on next Tuesday, we say will be added by the following Tuesday.
As far as the appendices go.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
think
the rest
what
of
we have some things I need to get from Michelle apparently still, that she can email me, those, but I'll call her and ask her for them. So I can get the affidavits.
Now, as we thumb through the pages, I know Laurel's got the typos and the spaces and all of that stuff. So
You can
you'll
handle
see
that.
that and do it, right?
Right.
So-
I mean, we've done 2 or 3 rounds of that already.
Do you remember
Some-
that there?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I mean,
And yes, there are,
Over.
as you dig in, you find other things. I found a
Yeah.
couple that we didn't have in edits before as well, last round I went through.
page
Wait a
5,
minute.
But substantively, if there's a
There's,
question, please.
just
No, that
before
was
land
tore
use,
down when
that
they built the
paragraph.
new thing. I don't think I saw
Um,
that.
Leelanau County has
No.
346 square miles of
It was a
land
poor farm.
area, and
And then
I think that's supposed to be 185
this was
square
all
miles
tore
of
down to
water.
build one that Casman's in now.
I can't even see this.
Yeah, but you had to have a
We
poor
can turn the
farm.
lights up.
Want me to turn these up again a little bit? I just need a place where I can see.
Oh, you can come over.
I'll just stand here. So number, page 5, sorry, Dave.
Just above land use paragraph.
I was reading stuff about all the mining up in the copper country. All those companies needed a poor farm. Miners are all deep as shit.
Place to stay.
And they needed a place to stay. They didn't have any money when they got disabled. Insurance.
I'm guessing that was what it's supposed to be.
185?
That's what I'm guessing.
1906.
If we have 346
Trees
square
were
miles
gone.
of land, we have less water.
Just like cedar.
Right.
At that time, because they came and stripped them out.
No, because Lake Michigan goes, we've got
Yeah,
county,
I'm sorry, I think we checked that. I
County
think
does.
it's relative to the fact that water goes out to the island.
halfway to.
And again, this
So what
was
is that supposed to
data,
be?
I didn't create this data, this came from the previous plan. So, but I thought I'd check it because I had the same question in my mind. I'll check it though.
So it's supposed to be 2,185? There's two commas there.
Why don't we just say it has lots of water and lots of
Lots of,
land?
lots
Yeah,
of.
again,
Doesn't even have
for the
any-
sake of expeditious, this was taken from the original, from the last plan, and I didn't vet the data, so that's my fault. We're not gonna check all the data that was previously created by,
But I would
the
think that's
county,
right.
so-
If you look at the county borders, it goes beyond the islands. That's why the sheriff needs his vote.
yeah, you have to.
Needs or wants?
He's a very eager boat owner.
Okay, we keep going. We'll try to check that here.
And, yeah, there's, I had one comment. When you're looking at, the next 2 pages are maps, and you look up in the little rectangle where the state of Michigan is, you see Leelanau County in red, and does it almost look like Old Mission Peninsula in green?
Just
I hear it's
could
great.
just be blocked by water from the printer.
I think it's just a printing thing, honestly, but
Okay.
Rob Herman makes these maps. I mean, I could ask him that.
I don't know, it was a small item.
Yeah,
It bothered me.
might be a resolution thing on the printing.
What page we on?
Page 8, yeah, there's a thing that Laurel circled, USBR 35 in reference to the Sleeping Bear Heritage Trail.
USBR is more than just the Sleeping Bear Heritage Trail, it's throughout the entire county.
That's the last paragraph.
I just didn't think it would be good to infer that it's just part
The
of the
Sleeping Bear.
Heritage Trail.
So you'd be scratching USBR 35, scratch that?
I think he references USBR further on. John, is it fair to say that roads are considered facilities, or would it be better to use the term trunk lines? You would know.
ER 35 refers to, it's a bike route 35 that goes all through the county.
Right, not just the Heritage Trail.
Not just in the Heritage
Yeah.
Park, that's true.
So it should just say, and the Sleeping Bear Heritage Trail.
Correct.
Right,
So scratch USBR 35.
right. Because the USBR 35 trail, if you pull that up on the internet, it's throughout the entire state of Michigan and other states, and it has quite a loop in Leelanau
Right.
County. It's not, it includes more
It's
than
not
just
just-
the Heritage Trail.
It probably just needs an and in there unless you want to eliminate it completely. USBR is a bike route, yeah, it goes all over the place.
Yep.
And I'm not sure, maybe that needed an and in between. I wasn't trying to imply that it was part of Sleeping Bear Heritage Trail, but that's what it looks like in this. Do you want to just eliminate it then? USBR 35?
In that instance,
Okay. And then are you back up to that trunk lines question? Did we answer that?
Are we page 9?
I'm sorry, yeah, it's what she has on the screen there is the trunk lines question.
and I asked John,
Okay.
do you consider roads facilities, or would you consider them trunk lines?
Trunk lines.
Okay.
Change that to trunk lines. Facilities gets removed and trunk lines is.
And Don, you had something in there?
And Klaus, as we're going through these, if there's any additions to the revisions I'm suggesting, I can re-upload this to the FTP site.
Are you doing them now, or, yeah, that'd be fine.
Well,
Who-
does somebody
who's
have a
tracking
pen?
those? Yeah.
As you're going along, Steve, can you go through the hard copy that you have?
Yes.
So if there's any additions, or, like, we're gonna keep it trunk line, so take off the question mark. And as we're going along, we'll continue to revise that revised document, and then I will send a final revision to the FTP site for Klaus.
Okay. So trunk lines is it?
I just want you all to know that we did not write all of this.
I understand. We
Right?
got it.
So this data came from some of the
Previous
previous
plan.
documents, so semantics are changing. We're not trying to avoid changing it, but we're also just trying to do the focus of this project, which is get the recreation plan in. So I appreciate doing this, I just want you to know we're not deliberately avoiding doing this stuff. It's just not what we focused on, so, okay. Wow, I can't read that.
Adjust.
It's adjust the character spacing. You should be able to select the entire paragraph and adjust the character spacing so that you can bring shore back onto that line, so you don't hyphenate lake shore.
Sure. Yeah, we were trying to get at the hyphens.
Those are something I would never even, I saw that, and I've never I mean, one over my head doesn't bother me.
We got all the logistics of desktop publishing and.
Well, it's 'cause you went to Glen Lake.
So it's.
I can read the word, works for me.
You know Lake Shore.
You don't even need to put
So
shore on
those
there.
are all self-explanatory in there, I think.
Yeah, I don't think there's any, there's, those are just kind of editorial. Where's the next one?
12?
I have
Are we up to 12?
Yeah, because we're skipping through.
pictures and tax records on my house, the house that I
Yeah,
own.
there's
More of the same.
Back to
I circled that so you can abbreviate it, because if you've already established the Michigan Department of Transportation is also known as MDOT, then you can just leave it as MDOT.
Right, understood. More abbreviations, Laurel.
Literally.
But you have spelled it out once.
My house. So you're in Buckley, when I came here to take all the trees.
Anything else on that? One, you know what? The Heritage Trail. Okay, never mind. Well, on this page, it's accurate. I thought I saw on another page where the spur around, Little Traverse Lake was included. and that's not- and that's not
I think I
there.
took that out.
Okay, that's not there, okay, good. 'Cause this one is accurate right here,
Yeah.
13.
Well, they didn't fight it on that.
Yeah, okay, it's just a
Is
tab.
there a
right?
controversy there?
No, never heard of it.
I think 15 is self-explanatory.
And on this next page, Dave, on page 16 is where I took that map out and just put in a historic map instead, I think, maybe.
You're saying what is there?
Pardon me?
We're removing-
That is in historic.
It's just a map.
We're
It's just-
removing volunteer because technically everyone gets per diem, so you're not volunteer.
You back up to page 15, please.
Oh, 15. And then 16,
Yeah, oops, there you go. That first sentence under Parks and Rec Commission, the verbiage has to change on that. It doesn't, it should say, is authorized to provide or something like that. To provide is a bad verb for what comes before.
The Leelanau County Parks and Rec Commission was created by county board.
There must be in 2 spots. Oh, no. See, I wrote that on that copy, didn't I? Because I went over with Mr. Frericks, his.
was authorized.
Yes, yes.
Or it was authorized as work.
Oh, okay, it's
Yeah.
not on there,
Because-
okay.
Don called me back after I'd already uploaded my first.
Oh, no, you mean, yeah. Right after 03 was authorized. Well, you'll see scratch volunteer, that'll be on this one.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Are we on page 16, 17 now?
On page 16, I felt that this nice picture had no meaning to the text of what we're talking about. I'm not sure why it was there.
I changed that one out, but I didn't like that graphic anyway. It was just a nautical map. It
Right.
showed some nautical map there.
So we have a different map
Oh,
now?
I see, okay.
I just put a historical map in there, just for filler in there. I like the map. Creative license, I don't know.
So what I just
We can take it
downloaded
out.
online isn't really, this isn't up to date what I have. I just downloaded it here today.
What's on the screen up there is what's on there right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Huh.
So it's a slightly different map than what you have.
I'm computer illiterate. They're not my thing.
I didn't know if that should have been Ben, so I just circled it, and I thought I'd ask everybody what you want to put in there.
To me, it seems like it should be BEEN.
I don't know, just read the sentence and figure out what that word should be.
Each
Has
facility.
been.
Yeah, it should be Ben.
Page 18?
John Popa spent a lot of time giving us some good updates to the old recreation list, which Mr. Bunnick referenced here, which to me, I mean, yes, it is a lot about recreation that the county doesn't do, but as we talked about, this county is exceptional in terms of the amount of recreational opportunities that are available. And this plan is probably one of the only places it's documented in one place. So we felt like it was well worth updating. So John spent quite a bit of time, and hopefully we got it right, John. I don't know if you poured through your comments or not, but and then to that end, we worked with the GIS, Rob Herman here at GIS, and back and forth on that to try and make the map read as well as it could. He wasn't real happy with the format. We didn't create the format. The format was created by the COG years ago, but we used the maps they had to just not have to create it from scratch. So hopefully it reads enough that it's small in here. It's meant to be a bigger map, but that map correlates to that big list in the back for the new commissioners that are here, if you didn't realize it.
Good job.
So, but the detail is a lot back in there, so if you need to know anything about where to fish or hike or whatever, I think most of it's there. Next page, listing facilities, this is into, those are self-explanatory, I think, mostly.
On page 19, Laurel, there's some reference to need of repairs or the adequacy of some of the equipment that's
You
there.
probably only need to state that once, so if you rewrite it to say, playground requires future safety assessment and inspection and includes large swing, adult baby swings, merry-go-round, monkey bars, and to put all lack adequate safety servicing, and then continue.
Rather than pick.
Well,
Just kind of group it.
yeah, because you don't need to state that after each thing that it lacks
What it
adequate,
needs or
whatever.
lacks.
Right, you should cross it out.
Just say it
It's
all
all those items.
requires
Yeah.
assessment.
It just cleans it up a little
This
bit.
equipment requires assessment. Okay. She's just simplifying that piece.
Yep,
Klaus.
probably wrote it once and never went back to it, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um,
Page 20.
okay.
And the appendices are referenced, and I think the circle is that there's no appendices, so.
Yep, we'll get those plugged.
However good you can get them for Tuesday and then add to them for.
I've kind of got a file I was trying to say. For example, there I have a couple of clippings that came out from the group that formed in the county support of that group. So I felt it was nice for the appendices. I just didn't get it in here yet, so.
When they make the motion to approve this, why can't you guys say, knowing that the appendices still have these things that has to be added to it?
They will, or that's our hope.
Yeah, and I'll try to
That's
get
how
as
the
much as I
motion
have
should
in
be
there now.
said, because that
I
stuff.
think they'll go along with that,
All right.
as long as the rest of it's cleaned up.
Don't say hope, they will.
What's the little comment, Miles? Kimberly recreation area needs to be.
What page are we on?
It has a typo.
Okay.
Page?
There's 2 C's in recreation. Page 1.
Let's just don't go through that.
I'm
I
sorry.
did it 3 times. It's frustrating.
I like the pictures.
Did a good job on these pictures.
Nicely done.
Where are you now?
We are cruising.
Page 60.
29.
And John's on page 60. What did you say?
I'm just,
29?
No, I'm on 30.
30, excellent.
Laurel's rolling, so you
We
keep
did.
going, Laurel.
Should put more pictures in here, or not
Yeah,
really.
these are
Casey, did you
typos.
burn those piles or did your dad?
My dad did.
Okay, those are, we'll keep those, we'll do those.
I was helping my buddy find my house, that's the only one that's supposed to capitalize.
What is the actual name of the park? Is the Old Settlers with apostrophe or no apostrophe?
No apostrophe.
Yeah.
So we should get rid of all those apostrophes.
Well, the only reason I did that is your plan itself has an apostrophe on it, so I was trying to be consistent, but
That's fine.
you know,
The sign doesn't, so.
Yeah,
okay.
that's-
And then,
I didn't want to,
Yeah.
because this I can't change.
Right.
This is not our plan.
Yeah,
So,
we
but
understand
we
that.
can change it in text.
That'd be good.
Okay.
There's a lot of places to change it.
I know, that's the hard part. is
One has it and the
Because I
other one
went
doesn't.
through and edited it because I saw it on this plan the other way.
I don't think it's wrong either way, so I'd just leave
Isn't it pluralizing the settlers? Maybe it's wrong on the
Settlers
sign.
is?
Yeah.
More than one,
Yeah,
but not possession.
not possessional, so it should be in there on the sign, on the map. Okay.
It's kind of, I guess, what the
We'll-
sign, I'm just
we'll
looking
fix
at the
it.
picture of the sign.
You guys are way too into the punctuation.
Just try the
Well, I mean,
hyphen,
it's
try the
it's a
hyphens,
professional
man.
document. I mean,
It's gonna
so-
haunt
we
you
gotta
for-
go. We
If you
gotta
don't
go.
do anything, it'll haunt you for the next 5 years.
Now's
Just
the
things that I,
time.
things that I don't pay attention to, that's not a problem.
Where are we now? Laurel's cruising along.
38.
She's at Monkey Flower,
Monkey Flower.
fast Monkey Flower.
We've done 38, right?
Yep, we went over page 38.
No, there's a piece scratched out. Does everybody have that up there?
I do too, yes.
Okay.
That's not, that's not reflected on this, but
Okay.
that's, Klaus has that now.
Okay,
And also there's some editorial.
yeah.
Veronica Valley. Got the snake. That's our walkthrough right there, Dave, you made the cut. That picture. You didn't get a face shot, but you are in there.
That Veronica Valley Subcommittee did an excellent job on this.
List.
Where is it?
Yeah, this in particular, because I'm trying to get the text to work in the same formatted boxes. It's just the hyphens drive me nuts, but we've tried to fix most of them.
What's the word on the side there? Laurel?
Features.
Features.
I'm a typist, not a writer.
Features.
We don't want to say part
Mine's
features.
10 times
say
worse
it.
than that, so.
Easy, we can get that.
And
And
that's
48.
just to match the same size of the dash that the rest of them have.
Gotcha.
And your eyes look better than mine.
I've got decades of proofing experience. That's an H for honky. You actually had it right in another spot, but it's just missing an H there.
Gotcha.
I didn't know, is there a bike rack? Does anyone know? I thought there was a bike rack at that park.
And Hendricks?
Yeah, I'm not gonna worry about it, but I just, because I've driven by there before and I know there used to be. We don't have, because it's not really a county, but I thought if somebody knew that there was, we could probably throw it in there.
Yeah, one thing that could be done with this is throw it over to each of the townships, their list, and let them update them, because we weren't able to talk to all these townships and say, hey, what improvements do you have or don't you have, you know what I mean? At some point, it might make sense to do that. but it isn't critical for this. I mean, I think it's by and large pretty
Yeah,
accurate.
Should be shady.
Shady, yep.
Summer Shane?
That's probably here at that point. It's listed, it's hard to track.
Lincoln? Is that a misspelling? Cherry Bend Road and Lincoln Road?
Lincoln,
Yeah.
Are we on 52?
I'm on 49 at the moment. Looks like just some punctuation on. Spacing. Adjust character spacing.
She wants to get rid of the hyphen, so she's telling me. I don't have that tactical proficiency to modify those. I just readjust them down, because most of these edits I try to do myself, so.
Well, if you're working with Publisher, it's not too hard.
Yeah, this is in software called InDesign.
Okay.
It's a desktop publishing that's more graphic oriented, but yeah, we'll get them.
Just,
In 52, Laurel had the name of the park in Solon Township.
I confirmed with one of the Township Parks Commission members the name of the park. Because Melinda had pointed it out at the special session of the board meeting that she thought it was different. And I was able to find out from them what it should be.
What, Black Park?
Cedar Community
Park.
She
Oh,
said it
that's-
used
that's
to
the
be
ball field.
Victoria Creek Park and now it's this.
That's the ball field too.
okay.
There we go.
Oh, and it's Grand Green after the Native American actor, so it needs an extra E.
Oh, okay.
And I circled that to spell it out, because if you're trying to be consistent with spelling out all the road, trail, whatever. I didn't think you needed any extra boxes. That's why I had that delete.
For the most part, I don't think we did, right? I think that's a
There were
few.
like 2 or 3.
Okay. Yeah, those are easy.
Should have hired Laurel.
And that's to spell it out. Anything under 10, you spell out.
It's great, this is great.
It's true.
Is anyone familiar with the Whittlesey Preserve? I'm assuming you got that from some kind of documentation, but I went to their website just to kind of review all the things that were on there, and I couldn't find it, but I'll just leave it in there, but I just questioned.
Which one are you trying to ask about?
The one from 91. the
Oh,
Whittlesey
yeah,
Preserve.
again, that was on the list that was in the previous plan. So
And I couldn't even find it on
I
the
don't know
website.
about that one. Yeah, I don't know for sure.
And it is known as the Maver Creek / Greeno Preserve.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't edit that. Conservancy.
I thought it would be more of an impact if you left natural resources bold, reduce the size of the rest of the text slightly, and unbold it. And I think that's correct. If you're talking about physical property, you're not viewing it, but you're citing as SITING.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. You got that.
And I thought it made sense to put previous because it's before that page.
Stacy, on your page.
63.
Should we say 62 is intentionally left blank?
It was.
It was because.
I don't know
of
if
the
you need it. We try to get all our title, the new sections on the right side of the document.
Oh,
But we did definitely leave that blank on purpose. But if it bothers you somehow, we can,
It'll be fine.
John will get over it. That's what you do in technical engineering documents, it's deliberately, purposely that way.
And question 5,
holy cow, is that marked up?
Well, hit an artery.
Yeah, this was all still holding place for the update, so. But what's the thing about enterprise there?
it should be an italic.
Oh,
It's
okay,
a publication.
great, sure.
Like I'm back in college.
This is what all my college papers look like. Wow, that's so good.
So we're gonna change the regular meeting to a special meeting now, that whole statement at the end.
Well, it goes away.
The public hearing date stays the same, the notification date stays the same, public hearing, so the adoption is what I'm getting at on that last one, passed by resolution, so we'll have to do it, I think, the January 21st date, right? What do you say down below on the needs?
I'm revising.
Yeah, revising.
Should we leave the date off?
That's the date we set when we put the calendar together, so that's why that's in there at that point. We probably wrote that in at the very beginning. But it's gonna be January 21 now. Regular meeting in county board to do resolution to adopt the plan. And of course, the title will change there.
The S is bold and non-italic, so if you want to fix just that word.
Oh, yeah, that's just something going on
And
Okay.
if you go back up a little bit, just be consistent, you've established operations and maintenance. At that point, you could insert your paragraph, parent, O and M, close parent, and then throughout, just shorten it. Because you kind of jump back and forth between using it either way.
there.
Could we back up to 64, please? See where we say the resolution for the 2020 plan? Are we gonna call it the 2020-2024
24.
plan? Is that the only other place it's mentioned?
We'll word search that title and change them all out, because that occurs in different places, but yes, that'll have to have the new title of the plan.
And in gray there, that's gonna be the regular meeting of December
It's gonna change to January 21st,
1R, whatever. All right,
2020, yeah.
the whole thing.
Correct.
All right.
I wasn't sure why it got broke unless it was just picked up and copied from the last document, so you can continue to run that sentence to the first line. It doesn't have to break there.
There's probably a hyphen or something, and I moved it down.
Are we in 66?
Yep, thanks again.
Proposed action under goal 3, item C. It says preserve field at the northwest corner of the property for passive recreation to blend with the historical and agrarian nature of the poor farm vicinity.
Right.
Tennis courts fit in that? Is that passive?
That's what we talked about before, is do the tennis courts actually fit over on the other side of the road or not?
I think it's back on the burner.
But we still have a field there and everything.
There's a deal in the works with
Yep.
Glen Lake Schools to partner
I
on
wouldn't put that in.
a set of tennis courts. Now, would they go in that field we were talking about, or what?
I'd leave it the way it is, and if something comes down the road,
We've talked about that. Maybe and what the thought was, I think, about last time we left it off, was the 2 baseball fields, or there's 3 baseball fields, basically eliminating 2 of them, making one a lot nicer, and putting the tennis courts there so that they're on that side of the road where there's parking and things that already.
So leave this where it is. Okay, leave it as is.
I mean, things.
That's
things
where,
could
that's
change.
where I took that guidance, was kind of our last few conversations about
Okay.
Miles
And
Kimmerly.
as
even though
far,
we
I
haven't
mean, there's
done the
really been
plan.
a lot of discussion right now from Glen Lake, but I talked to Chad about it, too. In the end, they're really.
It's cool down.
Yeah, and John Hoover wrote now knows about it, but they're looking at things, and they're just haven't moved from that right now.
Plus you're gonna get reamed if you try to do farmland.
Put animals in the barn and raise hay for the animals.
Yeah. You're fixing the barn up nice, huh?
Nice barn. I'm glad that happened. What page are we on?
68.
Goal number 3 of Miles Kimmerly.
Is it
or of
considered
Brian
the
Bell.
Leelanau Lake Association Kids Fishing Day event that we help out with providing is it their Kids Fishing Day? It's not, is it ours or theirs? Thought I would specifically give them credit if it's their event.
How is it listed in the ads?
I would just keep it Kids Fishing Day.
Because it's a co-sponsored event, it's not, it's Cherryland, we did put Cherryland Electric in there too, because they're.
Okay.
They're a conservation district.
Yeah.
But then at least add event.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's staying Kids Fish Day?
Fishing Day event.
So you can strike the other stuff.
How come you have these numbers circled? You don't like it? Do you just want them to say 2?
It should be spelled out.
TWO.
If it's under number 10, 9 and lower, it should be spelled out.
Come on, John, she told us that already.
Yeah, but she could miss one of them and not feel good about it. Should that be goal number 6 or 6? She's right, sort of.
Just strike the K on the, correct, K's one, just, it says 2000 K, it should just 2000, right?
Yeah.
$2,000K, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
2 million.
Who's that? Trillion?
Spelling.
And then some,
Oh, so there's a lot of extra boxes.
What's the flow about? Just the spacing?
Flush left for those that are stretched out.
Okay.
out of my office, I have one in my office, management office, once every 3 weeks, it just sits here for an hour.
My aunt feeds them on her porch.
Uh-oh.
We better keep moving.
I'll go grab the power cord.
We only got 2 pages to
Yeah,
go.
we can make it.
We agree with everything you say.
Well, most of it's just,
Jackie, the columns.
Formatting and, yep,
yeah,
Yeah.
just some typos. and-
yep,
You have that marked up there?
yep.
I've got it here.
And any additions to the one that Steve's been going, I will re-upload it to the FTP site with today's date.
Don't send it to me.
Work's done.
God, Laurel, you did a good job here.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Thank you, Laurel.
I've been improving stuff for 30 years, so,
It's in her wheelhouse. Oh.
dang it.
There we go.
Okay.
Got it.
Well,
You just finished it.
lawyer.
That wasn't much of a warning.
Final bills from engineering. This is yours, Steve? Who gave me that?
Yeah.
Final bills from engineering, how's that?
Okay, moving on, now that we've gone through that,
I get it.
Oh,
My engineer switched copies.
does everybody have a copy of the resolution?
you better have Laurel look at it and correct her spelling.
She's, I guarantee it's here over there.
She's
We're
smiling.
simply supposed to approve this wording.
Correct.
I figured since you're revising the plan, you might as well just give it a look-see and make sure it's good.
So we need to change the title again.
So did you want to make a motion to approve this with the suggested revisions or something, since,
Correct. The plan, you mean?
The resolution, or the plan?
the plan, because the resolution's next.
I move that we institute the changes we just went through for the 2020/2024 Community Parks and Recreation Plan.
And approve.
Support.
Do you need to and approve, or just the implementing of the?
I have motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners, or no, to institute the suggested revisions to the 2020 through 2024 Community Parks and Recreation Plan and forward on the recommended plan for approval to the Board of Commissioners.
I agree. That's good.
Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
And Ty, you seconded that, right?
Yes.
And the resolution, as Ty stated, will need to reword the title.
Should say,
Second to the last paragraph, too.
Community Parks and Recreation Plan.
So move.
Support. Is it in just two places? No.
5-year Community Parks and Recreation Plan.
I'll do a search and replace.
Okay.
3, 4 places.
Other than that, are there any changes?
well, now the title at the top, Mr. Chairman, Leelanau County Resolution, is gonna say, she's gonna correct that, and it's gonna say,
Community Parks
no,
and Recreation.
the first line,
Leelanau
number
County
20, 20-something.
2020.
Number 1, is that their first resolution?
2020-2024.
No, they have resolutions by numbers.
Right.
They'll say number 2020, and Laurel's gonna take care of that? Is this their first resolution? So you're gonna make sure that's correct, and not gonna say 2019?
I'm probably gonna shoot out a copy to everybody, including those who weren't here today. But yeah, it will. I'll have it so that everybody can see.
Resolution number 1, that new, that
Well,
19
clerk
isn't gonna be
assigns
up.
those, but I think it's pretty safe to assume it's gonna be resolution number 1.
All right. And it's not gonna say the 31st day of December, which
I
is in
just-
that,
I just brought up whatever was done in December
All
for
right.
you to review. And just to confirm, it's considered the 2020 through 2024 Community Parks and Recreation Plan.
correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I have a motion to approve the resolution as amended or as changed.
I'll make the motion.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to review of timeline for the 2020 grant application. Dave?
March 1st, huh?
Klaus?
Well, I think we put that generally on there because we're at the cusp with this plan being approved by the DNR to reapply for the Veronica Valley grant.
Right.
So Dave and I, prior to this special meeting session being moved forward, we're trying to talk about how to bring the correct information and get in the sequence for the executive board meeting and the county board to be able to address the requests of your committee. So we need to talk about schedule, and in essence, probably the place to start is we left off about March of 19 on the cusp of applying for the grant. I think we had revised and gotten approval from the Recreation Committee to apply for the grant again, reapply for the grant with the changes. And we had been working from a supplemental score we did the fall previous with a 30% match and the request of funds from the county. But I think Laurel has the documentation on how those motions went at your committee level, because the pecking order is clear that the committee probably has to re-establish their motion to recommend to the county board what you're requesting for that grant. And so it'll go your committee, executive committee review, and then to the board. And that should happen optimally in February, to February meetings. So, but I don't know that it has to be submitted and approved before you apply in April. And at one point, the board will have a pre-announced public hearing to consider the grant application as a requirement of the grant application and 2020 application. So working back from that, we got to get the sequence in order. I guess that's what
And you'll have to confirm a firm match amount that you want to ask the board for.
Yeah. So, there's some work to do at your February meeting, presumably on that topic. And
And we still have a meeting next week.
oh, you have a meeting next week, so you
Yeah, we
could
have-
start to.
January.
Right, we have a January meeting on 15th.
Yep.
Well, so next, Laura, it seems to me we need to give the county commission some heads up, some timeline of what's coming. Should that be done next week at the executive meeting? I mean, if that's all I'm doing is providing a look ahead.
I think because the agenda's already set, you could maybe ask Chet about providing a brief update, whether it's with Chet's update beginning or just prior to the board reviewing your recommendations. Check with Chet on which one he could do.
I'm sorry, I'm lost by your reference to our recommendations.
The parks recommendations that you just approved today. It's on
I
the
see.
January agenda for next week.
Got it. That is, and so you're suggesting Chet may allow me to add this timeline?
He might let you put a little update regarding the grant timeline, either during his little update at the beginning of the meeting, or possibly insert it just before you're discussing, or immediately after you're discussing the plan and the resolution. Does that make sense?
Could he just do it verbally and say, by the way, for information we got?
Well, I
this-
think he would be more comfortable with someone from your body
Well,
doing that.
Yeah.
He's gonna be there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So Dave could say, oh, this is your resolution, blah, blah, blah. By the way, here's what we're looking at for dates.
Right.
we're looking to get this done at February 2nd.
I think it would be.
And it would be in the minutes that way? And it would be-
Plausible to add that right after that second motion, just a
Yeah.
comment.
And he could do it from his notes, right?
I think so. 'Cause
I
you're
think
not-
so, if you know the
You're not
dates.
asking for them to
No,
move, you know.
but my first question was, is it more appropriate for next week's executive session or the
Yes.
following weeks?
Next week.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I talked to Chet before the meeting, and we're gonna have to have Klaus do some work between now and when we work on the grant. I think we ought to add a late edition next week and ask for approval to move forward with the grant. After we approve the 5-year plan, I think then we ask for approval to move forward with the grant application.
We already approved that. That's
No.
what he's working on.
No.
That was last
That
week.
was last year's.
So before we do any more work on it, we need to have commission approval, and I think we need to have that at the January meeting, so you know that we're on board. We don't have to have all the details on that, but we need to have approval to move forward with the grant application.
So that's gonna require more money?
Yeah.
Well, we took money away to do this,
Yeah.
so we need more money to finish that.
Well, you better have some hard pieces of paper then.
Yeah.
That's gonna say this and this, and Klaus needs another
I know what you're saying.
$200.
150. Yeah, we took out 2,000 to do the math. We took out 2,000 from the grant, previously approved grant application process. When we unplugged from that and plugged in this grant, recreation plan development.
So then yours,
So given the condition of it, if it doesn't change a lot, Laurel and I will put the grant back up, but we're gonna have 2 or 3 meetings, including a public hearing, to do that grant. And I'm not gonna get into it now, but we need to evaluate the grant again. We just got another set of new information from the DNR, which needs to weigh into how we feel about this grant application. I think we all need to, including the 2 new Parks and Rec commissioners, need to get up to speed with what that is, and maybe that's at next week's meeting or the February meeting, but either way, you have to ask the board to do it, then we have to start doing it, and then we have to set, and that schedule's gonna be pretty tight.
I mean, Chet did remind me that we didn't have approval
okay.
to do a grant. And I think February is too late to begin that process.
I agree,
I agree.
it is.
But do we not have to know
The amount.
the amount of the match we're gonna ask for?
Not for next week.
Yes, you do.
Yes,
For
you
ne-
do.
for
Yes,
next
you
week?
do.
Yeah.
You need to know, because the board wants to know that
Next
before they go
Tuesday.
forward.
Someone's gotta write that up and get it
Okay.
in that submittal of what it's gonna cost us to proceed. And it's gonna say, by the way, we took 2,000 out of it, we need to put that
You need
2,000.
2 things. You need the proposal from Klaus on what it's gonna cost.
Right.
And then you also need to know the amount that you're firmly asking from the board for the match.
On one of your pieces of paper
Then we go 37 last.
that you submit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be on that form of, it's gotta be written there in so many words.
So I brought today for this discussion, just the last worksheet we did for the grant, which shows the amount of the match request, which was in the grant last time. We don't expect it to change from a request standpoint to the board, but some of the details of the application probably will change in terms of how we tweak the plan submittal, the details of the plan. So, I mean, you could work from this.
Dave, can you do that? Because Laurel has that form to fill out of this and this, and by the way,
I think if you have a
What
clear
form?
narrative
Yes.
of what you're requesting, give me a call and I'll help you work out a draft motion or a recommendation.
there's a special form to fill out that you go in front of the board.
The executive documents.
Yeah, and it's the funding thing. It has to be worded, and she can help you.
That has all 3
I'm
scenarios,
leaving
Dave.
town tomorrow, so I
The
can't
front
go.
one is the
And the
one
board-
we ended up with,
The board.
the 30% match.
The 30/70, right?
And how much is it gonna cost? They have-
I think we can re-plug in what we didn't do from what we took out of the rec plan, in other words, the 2,000, as a not to exceed. Whether it's gonna cost that much, I hope not, but I think we're gonna use a chunk of that money to get through these meetings.
I thought that was all approved already.
We took the 2,000 out to do the 5-year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sideline.
Pass these around.
We're gonna put the 2,000
I
back
didn't realize
in.
there's policy.
that's the kind of words that whoever's presenting it's gotta
It's
say.
gonna cost us $2,000 out of our budget, which we have. We have Johnson work on this. And we're gonna be asking for a match to the tune of 30%.
You're not gonna go through all this grant stuff.
No, I just brought it
This is
because
just-
that question is in that box at the top, shows the the grant request and the amount of match.
Yeah.
30%, and that was the ask that you did last time,
Last,
That's why
yeah,
we started tucking money away.
okay?
yeah.
And just while we're talking, it came up, and I mentioned this to Dave, and Laurel brought it up in an email, is that there were other grants that were potentially out there to be sought, and Dave's been working on some, one of which was the 2% money, that one of the commissioners, whether it's Ann Sorgy or it's Melinda or whoever, is gonna ask, are you gonna work on getting some supplemental grants to support, this? I think the county board, I remember in their meeting said, we want you to work on getting some other money if you can. This money is gonna be in the allocation if the grant's successful as a match, but they did it with some caveats, I believe. So, and they probably will do again, yeah.
So, we have 3 sheets of paper.
Yes, the front one is
The top one,
Yeah, we worked up 3 scenarios to show you what other grants plugged in would look like, okay? One,
And we chose the top one.
yeah, we chose the top one. I could have left out the other 2, but I wanted to show you what we ended up with last.
Okay. All right, do I want to make a motion to go for the top one?
We already did. This is just information. We don't need to,
Well, it's gonna be a recommendation to the county board of commissioners.
but not Tuesday.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you just said that.
Tuesday has to approve his extra money
Right.
to go ahead and start applying for the grant.
They want to, we have to,
But they're
we have
gonna
to know
ask
how
us.
much it is.
Laurel, are you saying both? I mean, you're saying,
Yes,
yeah, so I
yes.
think
The
John should
commission
say
will ask
both.
John, when we ask for permission to go for the
How much is
the
the
grant,
match?
they're
To
gonna
apply
ask,
for the grant?
they're gonna ask how much is the match that we're going to apply for. I mean, it's going to be part of the application.
So the motion, let's just say you're gonna get with
Mhm.
Laurel on it.
Mhm.
It says attaches the request for funding to fund Gosling and Zubek, this amount of money, cost not to exceed, to apply for the grant that's attached.
Well, the grant won't be attached, but the commission's gonna have to know how much we're gonna be asking.
Yeah, per attachment, per page.
Yeah, the match amount we're requesting.
Right,
from the
and see
county board
attachment 1 or
is the
something.
attachment, it's $100,000.
So is this what you're thinking, motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to apply for a 2020 MNRTF grant in the amount of $331,900 with a county match of $100,000?
Yes.
Is that what you're looking at?
Well, we also have to say we wanna approve.
That's a
That's a
separate
separate one.
recommendation.
That sounds good.
Okay, so who's making that motion?
So moved.
Who's seconding?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Now, I thought I heard you say that the 2,000 that we...
That's the next recommendation that we're gonna do. It's another recommendation. We recommend to the county board of commissioners to hire Gosling and Zubek to finish the work to
Apply for that grant.
apply for this grant.
But that money's not coming out of our budget.
The 2,000 will be.
Yes.
So
Out of
we still have to get that approval from...
Well, we took 2,000 out of their working capital, out of their contract.
Right, I understand that.
And we need to plug 2,000 back in so they can do the work. Now, we'll probably have to have a new contract or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
So that will come. The cost of doing that's gonna be $2,000.
So you're saying motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to hire Gosling and Zubek to finish the work to to apply for the 2020 MNRTF grant in an amount not to exceed?
2,000?
No, he was gonna get you a figure.
He just said.
I'm fine with that. I mean, Laurel's gonna work on it with me when we put the grant application back up. We go back and forth, but we have mostly 2 to 3 meetings and a public hearing, right? So the work is largely done on the grant unless you start changing things. You understand all the components? We did the graphics, we did the
Yeah,
supplementals, we did the
put
narrative.
together, we need to go through.
Yes, but we still need to do the finishing process, which involves these meetings and these approvals to get it done. We may have a few tweaks that I'll bring up next time, just because the grant, the DNR's got more advisory information out here. So we'll talk about, Dave will give an update on the collaboration efforts we've been trying to make, et cetera.
Who wants to make that motion?
I think it was already done, just discussing, we haven't voted though.
No, who made the motion?
She read it, but
Yeah.
somebody needs to make that motion.
I'll motion.
Okay.
I'll
Who
move.
seconds?
Or,
Okay.
All those in favor?
Just a second, let's have a discussion.
Sure.
So.
Read the motion, is it to hire him again and add 2,000, or add 2,000 and he's still hired? Read the motion.
To
Please.
hire Gosling Zubak to finish the work to apply for the 2020 MNRTF grant in an amount not to exceed $2,000.
It's gonna be more than 2,000.
He just said it's.
He said he needs that 2,000 to add the rest of his work.
To finish the grant we're already working on, that will be sufficient, based on what I believe we need to do, unless we start changing the physical plan.
which I don't see we're doing.
So so it's adding 2,000,
We could do it as a contract amendment to our current work, which is the most efficient way to do it.
I'm just thinking you're gonna get eaten up on the board, what are you approving? Well, just approving giving Goslin Zubek $2,000 to finish this grant?
Well, we took,
That's
Dale
exactly right.
remembered that we took 2,000 out to do the 5-year
So
plan.
the motion should say replace the 2,000 we took out to continue with the,
I think you can establish that during the discussion with the board.
well, I don't know what our motion is then.
I think the motion's clean.
We do. I don't have, I'm not having any I'm not having any misunderstanding with it.
Call for the vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
It'll be all right, John. It'll be all right.
Should I go take a pill?
Yeah, yeah. It's okay.
Depends what the pill is.
Working on last year's on the.
I was
Parks
told,
and Recreation.
what's his name? Go take a
Any,
pill.
is there any other questions or concerns, you got anything else you'd like to talk about with the grant?
You got a lot of work to do, Dave. You get it more.
No, I think, well, Klaus, run through for me again. So I'm going to make these requests next week. What is the board facing in February?
So I would recommend after that happens, which is the 14th, you immediately have a meeting on the 15th. So I think it's grant one, right back to the grant and make sure everyone understands what's in the grant and on the grant. We have everything, including the draft grant, print out the whole application that was prepared and not submitted, to the point that we've stopped. And then make sure that we understand the score, that discussion about how the score came back and where you stood in the process of the grant application compared to other things. And then I have a little bit of information that we might want to consider regarding the state's new guidance on 2020 for the 2020 grant round. It comes out every year. We just got it, and this has some tweaks to it that everyone needs to be aware of. And rather than doing it today,
Yeah.
it's the next meeting.
That's our next meeting.
Yes.
I want to let the full county commission know what's coming at them.
And then as
Yeah,
far as
later on, so.
As far as the county commission goes, they're relying on your committee, as they have in the past, to make the recommendation forward for what's in the plan and how much it costs and what you're applying for and why. their job is to give you the matching money by resolution, so they just need to have a copy of the grant vitals as it comes out of your committee again. That shouldn't change that much from that sheet of paper right there.
So this would be going to them in February.
Yes, that would go to their executive board meeting first for their review of the formal ask with probably a draft resolution to put a public hearing on, out for February or March, one of the two, preferably February. But it's probably going to take February, so it's going to be a March public hearing by the time it goes through the two.
But they'll
So
need to
February
know.
will be the executive board and then the county board to put it on the calendar for your public hearing in March.
And they will see the details of the work that we're
We're going to tweak.
going to tweak, but
Quite
we're asking
slightly
next
tweak.
week for them to approve that we
Yes, because
continue your.
we
your
can
work.
open up the portal now, it's January, we need to open up a new grant, we need to have the authorization to open up a new grant number and start the process of uploading that grant. Even before we finalize all the detail in it, we've got all that to put back up online and to tweak.
And all
So,
this was pending that they,
Say yes.
Say yes.
And it's all due by
It's due April 1st,
right?
you have
That's
to
what I
put, you have to
thought.
push the button, sometime in March.
Right.
To apply, so. You're in good shape,
Well,
if
yeah,
we don't
well,
change a lot,
Yeah,
but the
I'm
board
more
is.
concerned about
the board.
giving them clarity on what's coming at them over the next 2 months.
Same as last year.
Well,
I mean, I
Hopefully
would
it
put
doesn't
a
get
copy of
derailed.
the plan, just like we had before. They were provided a copy of the cost, a copy of the plan, and the copy of the scope
Like
of the work
groundhogs.
in this grant with that. And if they want, at this point, we have all the narratives. They could see the whole grant application if they wanted to.
well,
I mean, it's up to the committee how much you want to put on them to look at. The narratives are helpful, if they read them.
So, I'm gonna try to clarify what you're clarifying, but, this coming meeting, which is next week,
yes,
this is already in the agenda,
right.
right? So, we made a recommendation to approve the 5-year plan. That's one thing. But we're gonna ask
A
for a late
recommendation.
addition.
2,
A recommendation to let him keep going.
We're gonna put a late addition in, that's not in the agenda yet,
right.
to, those most recent 2 motions we made. One was, this is what we're going for as far as a grant, and this is the match. And this is hiring Gosling to finish the work to do it. So there are gonna be 3 things that are key that we're gonna be asking them to approve. The 5-year plan, the grant path, permission to go
The
for a
match.
grant, and permission to hire them to ferry it through.
But the permission to go for the grant isn't the specific grant yet. It's the, I mean,
It's to work on the
to
grant.
work on the grant.
And this is the match that we're gonna be
This
asking.
is gonna, the match that we're asking.
Right. So there's 3 big things to convince the county commissioners to vote yes on.
But they are expecting, I mean, and the reason we're rushing this process, we talked to them last week, was that we're going for the grant.
Correct.
And this won't be a surprise to them, but we gotta get them official approval. The concern will be the match.
And the caveat going in is that we've been looking at the application process. And the application process brings us to the necessity of presenting this to you today. And it is all at once, so to speak, but it needs to be that way so that we can make the deadline for the application.
But then do I want to tell them what they're going to have to make a decision about in February? next week? Do I need to give them a heads up?
I think this is a big pill. This is, we
Yeah, this
filled
is
up
gonna
the
be
trough.
This is gonna be a yes or no
This
thing here.
we're filling up the trough here.
Okay.
And I don't think we need to go there.
Okay.
So, then, officially, then it's not a separate, if they approve this plan, they're approving going for the grant. Because going for the grant is in this plan.
It was a suggestion under Veronica Valley.
I know what you're saying, I know what you're saying.
It's true, but you still should separate it.
We
I'm
should- we have to
I'm
have
not
the
sure
plan anyway.
you have to separate our additional work on the grant and applying for the grant, or kind of the same topic.
If we get a yes or no on this amount, it could save Dave a lot of time getting up, going, getting everything ready. And then we go, here, this is what we want to do here, we've got filled, everything's filled out, ready to go, we just need your approval of the match. And they say no, then Dave's invested a whole bunch of time
They
and
could have
invested
had
some
a
money with
vacation
that.
somewhere.
So if
Okay,
you, if
so I
you
think I'm
go,
getting this all straight. Now I want to ask about the match here. I thought we approved 95 a year in the application we made.
yeah.
If you look at the top of that, we were talking about at the time, getting some matching money from that process with the NRC, with the Tribal Natural Resources Group, from the tree planting project, Dave. So yes, the grant actually was 94,000 something dollars. That was the original ask. When we did this last update for the 19 application, we were in the process of trying to figure out that whole tribal planting, tree planting component for matching money and another party to collaborate with. I don't know where that stands, and that's where some of the detail is. But in one shape, I mean, probably we should ask for the same amount from the county and not that additional 5,000, because I doubt they're gonna go up. They're probably gonna go down, and they're probably gonna ask for some other things, which might have you guys working on it at the committee level to tweak this grant application. So, I don't know. They may ask for you to at least pledge to supply a 2% application or some other applications over the year to try and get some more money.
But the figure that I want to give them then is not 100,000.
95.
95. Yeah, I just we rounded to 95.
Yep.
And they agreed for the previous app, they agreed for 95.
Yes, I think that's right.
So we're keeping the match ask.
I understand, I just want to be clear.
Yep,
Very
no,
good.
that's
Very
very
good
true.
catch. Very
Yep.
good catch.
Yep.
Because they will see, no, they won't see this piece of paper next week.
Right.
Unless you approve it.
They're gonna have to see it, right?
Yeah, they will.
It should go in a packet.
Well,
We should
except
send
then-
it to them on the day.
Well,
Right.
except how, then I don't understand.
If you just tell them
Guesstimate.
that you're looking for X amount of dollars, they always want the documentation on what that's representing.
But if this documentation right here may yet change.
You can tell them that at the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. But this
Subject to
will do
change.
you much more good than.
Oh,
if
I
you
don't
didn't.
doubt that, but my question is then, are they going to hold us to this?
Well, you'll be telling this is last year's figures, and then it might change slightly.
Slightly.
That's up to you.
Okay, that I get that.
And there's no
But the one thing
1921
that's not
rules.
gonna change is the 94,000,
95.
95,000. I mean, that's,
Yeah, ask for what you asked for before. If
Yeah.
anything, we're going to have to tweak some things to get that 5,000 out of there to get the money still at 30% matched at 95,000 if there's no other additional dollars going into it. You know what I mean?
I
That
got
one tweak
that
would happen.
explanation to them.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
sounds
how many
good.
Just don't ask for more than that.
How much of that 95 is coming out of our Parks and Recreation budget?
That was what I was
30.
gonna say, how much have we already put in? Because we've been putting in 10 grand a year for how long?
Till 2 years.
Just 2 years.
But
This would be the third year.
But our commitment was to do 3 years.
But it's a good point to bring up that
Oh, yeah,
right off the bat,
absolutely.
30,000 of it's coming out of
Yep.
what's already allocated to Parks and Rec
There's a really good chance that it would be 4 years.
by then.
Don't confuse me anymore.
No, but the point is, we're not
He's
asking
walking
for
out,
an
he said
additional
no.
95,000, some of it's.
Some of it's already been paid back, but also will, like. when-
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Because we asked for an increase in the budget, so.
So I'll work with Laurel so that the paperwork that they see is correct. I just needed to get clear on, I can explain this detail may yet change. But the tweaked.
I mean, that's only fair to say, because you have some work to do at the committee level, that's the next step.
Yes, yeah, but the match we're asking for is 95, but we've committed roughly 30% of that, not quite, from
Yep.
our budget. And yes, we will be looking at other grants.
Perfect.
Question?
Yes.
What the success of obtaining the grant, is it compromised by asking for a 30-70 mix versus a 40-60 versus a 50-50?
It improves every percentage you get, that's why I did those exercises.
I mean,
So-
Last time-
We increased from the previous failed application from 26% to 30.
Oh, is that gonna be enough? I mean, the goal is to get the grant.
The
This is
goal
a-
is to get the approval from the county
Well, that's
commission.
true
This is a
first.
driver of the
But, you know, we can convince Ty to go from 100 to 120, I think.
Yeah, no.
This is a poor way of looking at it, but this is a long shot to get even 100 grand or 95
All right,
grand.
okay, I'm just, history-wise,
Yeah, we kind
this
of
is the way
we
to
pushed
go.
it to the maximum we can
Okay.
ask from the
And,
county.
and when we asked for the previous one, the county board of commissioners were sitting in a little better position than they are
No,
money-wise.
that's true.
Than they are today.
Yeah,
Some things have happened that they've had to pay for, and,
Good condition.
Did
thank
it-
goodness they're able to.
Now, also in the explanation is that none of these match funds will be required until rather late 2021,
mhm.
not until 2021.
Why was the grant turned down with the 26%?
It's competitive, there's
They
150
just don't tell you.
communities
Okay,
applying
okay.
for it,
Yeah.
and it's all score-based, and it's a
So you don't
good
think
grant,
going from 30 to 40 makes a difference versus 26
It varies
to
every
30?
application round, and that's why some of this we have to vet this a little bit when we talk about it and sit down. I mean, we might even decide that we're going to scale out some of this to increase the amount of, reduce the amount of project to increase the amount of local match available if we keep the match the same. Just so you get better odds at the grant.
And in the grant we're submitting this time, will there be a mention in it that we put one in before the 26 level? Is that gonna be helpful? I think it might be.
There's only so many ways you can, it's all formatted in the way you
Yeah.
fill in everything, so
Okay.
the grant, and it make matters worse, the grant coordinators change, it seems like every year. So the person that worked on it last year will not be the person that's working on it this
Gotcha.
year. So it's difficult, but there is some muscle memory at the higher levels of their organization, and that's where you try to get some of that information kind of outside of the grant application itself, so.
In terms of gaining points, and I'll save some of this till our regular meeting next week, because it'll be part of my update.
Okay.
We really need to succeed with what's called collaboration. We didn't score in that category last year, even though the Prairie Grass Project is collaborating with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. It didn't quite meet their definition. So I've got a second plan afoot right now, but I've got one that, whatever the date is for the Bingham Township meeting, I'll find out their response
I gotcha.
to that entire request. We're really trying to get the biggest bite of points out of developing this collaboration. So we'll see.
Sounds
Because I'm
good.
not there yet.
Sounds like you're working on it.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, because it's the biggest bite we can make in one place. Okay, I'm square. You and I'll be working together, Laurel, just so I'm real smooth next week.
Any other comments, questions about what's going on?
Are you
We'll have
okay,
our meeting
Bob?
next
Yeah, what,
Wednesday.
is your meeting at 3 o'clock scheduled
Yeah.
next week?
Let's see any public comments. Commissioner comments? Anybody got any? Motion to adjourn?
Glad to have you on board here.
Thank you,
Be
man.
more organized.
Yeah.
Nice to meet all of you.
Yeah, you had a confusing session for a first one. Okay.
Dave, I'm gonna send you this. which I scanned in and I got last week. And I have not interpreted this yet, but you're gonna have an interesting look to see that. This is a new development scoring, and I don't understand it all yet.